Backyard Professor Chess videos. I played this game in Chess Club a while back, and I am trying to incorporate the Silman thinking technique. What I want to do, I want to show you this game because I deliberately attempted to do an experiment, and that's something that Silman says you should do. Now, Silman, he's an international master. He didn't get that title by playing wimpy chess. And the man's written over a dozen books, so he's got something important to say, is my thinking, right? And so I am attempting to incorporate his mental toughness into my chess games. This is the idea with this particular game. I established something very important. I open with the queen pawn opening right at the very beginning of the game, and I try to nurture this imbalance throughout the course of the game. He opens up with this knight, immediately hitting my pawn. So I think, well, I've got it covered with the queen. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to go ahead and push my other pawn. My opponent immediately attacks this pawn. Well, it's obvious he's fighting me for the d4 square, right? You can see that, a knight and a pawn attacking my d4 square. And I'm thinking, well, you know, I really don't want to lose control of the center, so I pull up a pawn to guard this pawn, and he's immediately bringing out his bishop to here and going check. So I can see that he is playing a very aggressive game, and it's a good game so far. I'm thinking, I have the center pawns on the dark square. He's brought out his dark square bishop to try to check me. I can go ahead and swap that bishop, and I'll be in good shape because I'm changing out my dark squared bishop, which is my bad bishop. So I like this exchange. And of course, he takes the bishop. Now at this point, here's my question. My internal dialogue says this: I want to work in this center part. Where does my knight belong? It belongs up here, or does it belong here? Because it changes whether you put on c3 as opposed to d2. I want my knight up here. So I retook his bishop with my queen. That opens up the diagonal over here to the queen side. I've got good central pawns so far, but the day is young, and so is the game, and of course, he's immediately going for control of the center. He's obviously been studying Aaron Nimzovich and Jeremy Silman, as well as Alexander Alekin. Well, I respond this way. Now, at this point, this is where my experiment begins. We've kind of made a few moves. Neither one of us are overly well developed yet, and he keeps coming at me in the center. Silman says when you play a game and you're learning how to get rid of your amateur thinking, get rid of your fear or your idea of attack, and play the game solidly, nurturing your imbalances, this is the proper way to play chess. I see a chance to create a very interesting imbalance here. I pushed my pawn. Now, the nice thing is, I have a wonderful queenside space imbalance. This is very simple to see. There's nothing going on over here yet. All of the action is on the queen side. My opponent pulls the knight out to here, and now I've got an interesting option that I want to show you. Now you can see this queenside imbalance. He's bringing up his knights. Here's my experiment. I decided I want to nurture this imbalance. I want to push my queenside pawns up. It's time to practice the Jeremy Silman technique of getting rid of the amateur's mind and devote myself to nurturing an imbalance. Wherever that imbalance is, the key is to nurture that imbalance. So I'm going to do everything I can to have a good queenside game. And of course, he's going to do everything he can to stop me from having a good queenside game. Now, I want this knight. On the other hand, I would rather have my bishops. Because in the long term, if I had both bishops, it would give me stronger runs on the inside, on the queen side. But I see another option here. Silman talks about the Steinitz rule of taking away advanced support points for knights, and I have queenside space. Why not add to that? Does that make sense? So I go ahead and push the pawn threatening his knight. And it works beautifully. I put him right back on his original square. Now I'm starting to feel relatively good here. I'm saying, okay, I've got queenside space. I've taken his knight out of the game pretty much. This is exciting. It's a good imbalance for me to have. However, I need to take care of this situation down here. I'll develop my bishop so that I can go ahead and castle, which is always a good thing. You want to castle early in the game. He's not going to let me get away with queenside space. Those pawns are menacing pawns. So he's going to challenge my pawns directly. Here is why I wanted to retain my knight for the c3 instead of retaking on the d2. Because now I do have influence on these important squares. The d5 square is extremely important, as is the b5 square. And he takes my pawn with the b5 square, opening up a file for him. Now, I've got a couple of options. Do I retake with my knight, or do I retake with my bishop? I decided I wanted to retake with my bishop. Again, I'm experimenting. I get a great diagonal onto his king side. I also have really good power here on the queen side. And of course, he takes my knight. Now, I'm stuck here. I go ahead, this is one of those things that I might not have calculated this correctly, because now I've kind of screwed up my king side somewhat. You see how that works? So I have an open file in front of my king. If I decide to castle king side, there's nothing forcing me to castle king side. I can castle queen side, but there's not a whole lot here because I've been pushing my queen side pawns. So, he pulls his knight back out now. Now that there's not a pawn to challenge the knight, he doesn't mind exchanging the knight for the bishop. He pulled his knight out. I went ahead and kingside castled. And this makes some people nervous. They say, well, this is a stupid move because now your king's wide open. My king's not wide open. I have good double pawns. That one's weak. The f3 pawn is at this point, but I've got a rook back in this file up. I don't see how he can directly attack my king, so it's not overly critical, but he is going to bring his rook into this game because he has a beautiful central file there. You see that? That's a wonderful central file. I'm telling myself, stay on the queen side. My dialogue at this point is, so help me, I push the a pawn. You do this on the queen side. If I win because I stayed nurturing my imbalance on the queen side, great. If I lose, it's okay because I've at least genuinely tried to stick with the ideas that Silman has given me. And he comes right up there and stops the pawn from advancing. Now, we can see the battle here. If I took that as the cue to say, oh, well, I don't have anything on the queen side. It's all clogged up now, so I'm going to hurry up and go attack his king. You're thinking wrong. That's not the name of this game. This particular game is queenside play because that's where my imbalance is. My space, my pieces are coming up into here. This is the side of the board I'm going to play on. Come hell or high water, I'm going to play on this side of the board. So I nab this open file for myself. My pawn is covered well. I've got a good discovered check if I can get rid of that knight. He brings his queen up to protect that knight, just in case I decide to swap. And I'm thinking, instead of letting him grab that file, I can grab that file and hold on to that file. I can challenge him for that open file. Now I have two open files, and this is also one of the things you definitely want to do with your rook. My opponent brought his rook back. I brought my rook up, covering my 7th and 8th ranks. Besides, I want to double up my rooks. So now's the time. He let me, and then he made another move back to here. So he's given me a move here, and I need to take advantage of this. And the way I do this is I keep telling myself, play on the queen side, stay on the queen side. So I double my rooks on that B file. I have a wonderful weak pawn here at C7 that I'm going to be able to attack, and possibly B7 could be considered a weak pawn also. They're both backward for sure. They're not going to be advancing anytime soon. So now I'm starting to feel pretty good. I'm saying I've got something going good here on the queen side. I might be able to actually make this work. He's going to challenge the file and protect the pawn, of course. What he wants to do in this instance is he wants to try to get rid of his weaknesses. He's going to start trying to exchange pieces off because I'm pressuring him. I'm cramping him up. See how that works? And then like a moron, I exchange the pieces. Now what I was thinking here, I was thinking if I take, this is one of my miscalculations. If I take that, I'll open up this file and it blocks his pawn from taking that, so that I'm going to be able to swoop down here and take that pawn. And for the life of me, I don't know why I didn't see the queen taking the bishop. I thought the queen was going to dodge back here or come out to here. I don't know why I didn't see that. I didn't see that, okay? I'm still an amateur. I'll be an amateur for quite a while. And at this point, I'm thinking, oh, crap. Did I blow the queen side here? Do I have anything going on? Yeah, I've got a good file, and I can jump a knight into here, but has he basically beaten my queenside attack back? Am I on the wrong side of the board? Do I have to now go for a kingside attack? And I thought, well, I see another way. I sat here for quite a while looking at this move. I see another way that I can get at the queenside in kind of a fun roundabout way, so I'm going to go ahead and experiment. I mean, if you lose, you lose. You lose a game, and I bring my queen over to here with my intention here now is not to start a kingside attack. I don't care about the kingside. There's nothing over there. That king is perfectly safe. There's nothing over there for me to target, but I can come zipping back over here and target this pawn once I get rid of this knight by pushing my double pawns. You see that? That was my thinking with this move. Well, he's going to chase my queen away, but my queen's not going for a kingside attack. He's freaking out for nothing because my intention is to get back over to this queen side. In the meantime, I have to move my queen out of danger. See, he's freaking out thinking I'm attacking his kingside. You can't do a one-move attack on a kingside and expect to win. My whole argument for me, inside my heart, is I want to get pressure on this queen side. I can make a breakthrough here. Well, I go ahead and push the knight up to here. I have this weak backward C7 pawn that I want to put some pressure on somehow. Right? Well, he's coming back over here to put pressure on my weak pawn. And I went ahead and took... No, I didn't. I didn't take that yet. I came to here because now I have a double pressure on this backward pawn, and I'm going to win that pawn. That's what I want to do. He brought his queen out to here and went check. Now see, at this point, it looks like I'm in trouble. You see what I mean? I left my king open with this lousy exchange that I did earlier, and now he can come and attack my king. Check, I'm in trouble. Am I in trouble, though? You know, most people will freak out and start bringing in their forces back here. No, my imbalance that's favoring me is on this side. So I want to emphasize to myself, I will play on the queen side. Well, I dodge my king out of check, and is there anything else he can do about it? No. So he does push the pawn. Now he got rid of his weakness. That's what you have to do with a weakness if you can do it, and he's pressuring my knight. So that's a good move. He got rid of the weakness and he's pressuring my knight. Well, I went ahead and dropped my knight right there, and I've got a beautiful rook fork. I'm going to win the exchange. Hot dang, things are looking good. You see, because I've stuck with this queenside play, I haven't freaked out and brought my queen over here and tried to bring my rook back over here to protect my king yet, because technically he's not in danger. I mean, his queen is not going to go here and go check, for crying out loud. You know, the king can take the queen. He doesn't have an attack on my king, so there's no reason to freak out and worry about it and remove my imbalance that's favoring me. I can go ahead and make some great tactical moves here. I'm going to win the exchange here. Well, he's got to take that pawn. You got my pass pawn on the A file. I went ahead and took advantage completely as fast as I could, and I won the exchange. I got my rook, which was really fun. He pushed his pawn against my queen. Now this was cool, because now no matter what, he does get to take that knight with my queen on a square that he wants her on. Remember, what's my theme? Queen side imbalance of extra space. I've got the file here. There's my target, B7. Isn't that beautiful target? Nothing's guarding that B7 target. Hot dang summer in the city. Stay on the queen side, right? Well, what's wrong with going like that? Now look at this file. I've got a reverse Alcan gun on it almost. This is spectacular for me. Well, he interestingly, instead of retaking with his king, retook the knight with the queen and took over his 8th rank again, which is pretty good. Now, I can exchange the queens at this point. This was another debate. I'm thinking, you know, do I take the queens? The problem is he's got the pawn majority here and I don't. And he's got a better pawn structure on this side than I do here. So do you change out the ladies here, or do you take the pawn? And I ended up taking the pawn, and I'm very glad I did. I'm not ready to exchange the queens yet. Even though I am the exchange up, I'm not ready to change out the queens yet. I'm not going to do it. He brings his rook right to here. No, he doesn't. He took my pawn. He took my weak pawn. Now, see, it's a matter of taking pawn after pawn after pawn. Trouble is, his knight protects the pawn here. So I can exchange the ladies now, because he still has a majority, but I'm willing to exchange the ladies because now I've got the reverse Alcan gun. The exchange is going to extremely help me because he basically took his rook out of the equation. He comes up to here and blocks my threat to his queen. I can't just take his knight because then I lose my queen, so what do you do in this instance? Bring your power to the 7th rank. I've told you that in other videos on rooks. Man, when you've got an open file like this, take your power to him. And you're saying, I know, be careful of the back rank mate, but I don't have one. He's getting close, though. He's got a great move here to shut that off and then drop his rook down and get me in checkmate, so I've got to be careful here. There's some interesting things occurring. Well, he comes back over to his open file here because on the queen side, he can see that my power is building very fast here now. Now there's some serious problems going on. He's in a little bit of hot water because I've won the exchange. I see something else. I say, I've got open files here, but I also have an open file here. Why do I have to let his queen dominate that file? Why can't I? Now I can come in through this side. There's my weakness, G7, my opponent's weakness. I've got this covered. That's a great way to double attack that king, man. Get him from 2 different areas. I think I've got him where I want him. I forced him to virtually get rid of his weakness and push his pawn, which is covered by his queen. However, notice what this does for me? Now I have a great idea. I'm on the 7th rank. Pull your queen up, and you can come and checkmate his king here. Notice how my queenside play, where I played with the favorable imbalance, is now making it possible for me to get to his king. Isn't that a fascinating situation? So it's interesting how sticking to my guns on the queen side has given me a phenomenal game, even though I haven't attacked the king yet. He brings his knight to here, and I'm thinking, you know, he closed off this file here for me because his queen's guarding it, and now his knight's double guarding that. So what'd be wrong if I come over here and put a pin on that knight against the queen and take over this open file? This rook's not doing anything right now. He's not playing that rook much. Well, as soon as I thought that, of course, he starts playing that rook very well. He starts covering his 8th rank. He has to, because now the attack is on. But the cool thing is, I had 3, the 2 rooks and the queen here. Now I have a chance to have the queen and the 2 rooks on this file go ahead and take the knight. Because I've got the power to back that up, and now he is in trouble. You notice how, because I stuck with my guns on the queen side where my positive imbalance of extra space, and you notice it was a static imbalance. It's been here the whole game. That has helped me to break through and actually get to his king instead of doing a direct king side attack. And now, of course, the game is over. He moves. I move. He resigns. Because, of course, all he has left to do is go to h8, and I go to g7 and win the game. The reason I think this game was so fun for me is because I seriously attempted to keep my imbalance on the queen side stronger. I kept my focus where my imbalance was, as opposed to being scared when he came over here with his queen and put me in check, rushing all my forces back over there to defend the king, defend the king. No, there's no reason to worry about that. I have the pressure here, and you notice how I made my opponent react to my moves. When I did something on this queen side, he had to do something on this queen side. That's called taking the initiative. That was a really fun game for me. So I hope this idea of learning how to cure the amateur's mind disease of just having wishy-washy moves back and forth, trying to defend your king, reacting to every threat your opponent throws at you, rather than do that, when you have a positive imbalance, go with that. Make that work for you. This particular kind of thinking really does happen to work. Now, it's not going to make you win every game, of course not. But if you practice good mental habits now, it will serve you well up into the tournaments. That's what Jeremy Silman says. And I believe him. I think it'd work real good. So, thanks for watching my videos on this windy day. Happy checkmating, and I will see you in the next video.